We moved into the house on a Monday. It was the kind of place you imagined growing old in. White shutters, wraparound porch, a sloped backyard that ended in a line of trees. The kind of house that came with promises, quiet nights, laughter over dinner, and the soft cooing of a baby from the upstairs nursery. That last part was already true. Our daughter, Sophie, had just turned 6 months old. She was still too small for her crib, still learning how to hold her head up straight. But she was the reason we'd moved. Bigger space, quieter street, a yard, eventually, for her to play in. The first few days were chaos, boxes everywhere, tape sticking to the soles of our feet, takeout cartons piling up. We didn't even set up the baby monitor until the third night. It was a basic model, nothing fancy. Audio only, but with a strong signal. I placed the receiver on my nightstand, just a small white speaker with a single green LED. That night, I woke up at 2:43 a.m. to static. Sophie wasn't crying. There wasn't even movement. Just soft static, like a blank TV channel. That wasn't unusual, and I almost went back to sleep, until I heard a click, like a mouth opening. A second later, a low whisper came through the speaker. It was so faint, I thought I imagined it. I sat up in bed, blinked into the dark. The room was still. My wife, Emily, was asleep beside me. I leaned toward the monitor. For a few seconds, it was silent. Then again, click, whisper, 2 or 3 syllables, but I couldn't make them out. I got up and went to check on Sophie. She was fine, curled on her side, breathing softly. No movement. No one else in the room. Back in bed, I chalked it up to interference. The baby monitor was old, maybe picking up a neighbor's signal. Still, I moved the receiver a few feet away and turned the volume down slightly. The next night, it happened again. Same time, just before 3 a.m. Same pattern. Static, click, whisper. This time it was clearer. A voice, male, low and deliberate. And it was saying a name. Not Sophie's. Not ours. Nathan. Nathan, wake up. I froze. There's something about hearing your name in the dark, especially from a device that shouldn't be transmitting anything at all. I walked into Sophie's room with my phone light on. Empty. Same as before. I unplugged the monitor, sat down on the floor, and stared at the baby for a long time, as if she could explain it. She stirred once, sucking gently on her pacifier, then slipped back into whatever dreams babies have. I didn't tell Emily. The third night, the voice didn't say my name. It said something worse. Don't leave her alone tonight. I kept the monitor in my lap after that, staring at it like it might bite. The voice had come through again at 2:58 a.m. and lasted maybe 10 seconds. Just enough to say that single, clear sentence. There was no inflection, no emotion, just flat, clinical words, like someone reading instructions. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The following day, I bought a new monitor. Top of the line. Video, night vision, encrypted signal. I didn't care how expensive it was. I needed to know if I was going crazy, or if something was really using that old monitor as a mouthpiece. The new one worked perfectly all day. No interference. I set it up with my phone app and watched Sophie breathing peacefully on the screen as I ate dinner downstairs. When I tested the audio, it was crystal clear. But around 10:30 that night, something strange happened. The old monitor, the one I had unplugged and thrown in a box, turned on. I heard it. A faint click, then the same green LED lighting up on the nightstand, even though it wasn't plugged in. Static crackled through the speaker. Emily was brushing her teeth in the bathroom and didn't notice, but I felt the air change. Like the room had gotten heavier. I leaned toward it, afraid to touch it. And then it spoke again, but not in English. A guttural series of words hissed through the speaker. Not angry, more like chanting, measured, repetitive. I grabbed the device, pulled open the battery panel. Empty. No batteries. No cord. Nothing that should have let it work. I dropped it. Backed away. Emily walked in and saw my face. What's wrong? I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the monitor on the floor, still hissing. She followed my gaze. Is that the old one? I nodded. We threw it away that night. Not just into the trash, but into the garbage can outside, buried under plastic and rotting fruit. It didn't matter. The next morning, it was back on the nightstand. Same green light. I started keeping notes. Night 1, 2 and 43 seconds, a.m. Static and whispering. No words. Night 2, 2 and 58 seconds, a.m. Voice said, Nathan, wake up. Night 32 and 56 seconds a.m. Voice said, "Don't leave her alone tonight." Night 4:10 and 30 seconds p.m. Device turned on without power. Chanting. I showed them to Emily. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even scared. She was quiet. Thoughtful. "I used to hear things too," she said. "That stopped me cold. When I was little," she continued, "my parents had a monitor like this. I used to hear someone calling my name through it. My dad said it was interference. My mom wouldn't let me sleep alone for a year." I stared at her. "And you never told me this?" I forgot. Or maybe I didn't want to remember. That night, we unplugged every monitor, even the new one. We slept with Sophie in our room. But at 2:59 a.m., I still heard the voice. No device. No static. Just a whisper from the hallway. "She's not yours." The next day, I called a technician. He was in his late 50s, smelled like gasoline and mint gum, and carried a beat-up bag full of meters and cables. I told him I was worried about interference. He asked if I lived near a radio tower, a shortwave enthusiast, or a military base. I said no. He tested the airwaves in Sophie's room. "Nothing unusual," he said, watching the needle bounce lightly. "You've got a little ambient signal, but nothing strong enough to hijack a monitor." I asked about the old device. Could it work without power? He shook his head. "No battery, no circuit. That's not interference, that's magic." He chuckled, but I didn't. Before he left, he looked at Sophie. She was sitting in her playpen, gumming a cloth rabbit. "Cute kid," he said. Then, quieter, "I'd keep her close if I were you." That night, Emily took Sophie to bed early. I stayed up, sitting in the living room with the new monitor on the coffee table. The feed from the nursery was still. Just the crib, a soft white night light, the walls painted with clouds and stars. At 2:41 a.m., the screen blinked. Just once. A flicker. Then again. I leaned in. Sophie was still in the crib, but something had changed in the shadows. There was movement. Not in the crib, in the corner, near the bookshelf. At first I thought it was a trick of the night vision. But then I saw a hand. It emerged slowly, pale and thin, resting on the side of the bookshelf like someone leaning forward. Then came the top of a head, not a child's, not an adult's. Too smooth. Too long. My heart stopped. I stood up and bolted upstairs. When I flung open the door to the nursery, the room was empty. Just Sophie in the crib, blinking up at me. The corner? Nothing there. I checked the closet. Under the crib. Nothing. The monitor showed me something, but whatever it was, it didn't stay. I picked Sophie up and didn't put her down again until sunrise. The next morning, Emily and I fought. She didn't want to leave the house. Said it was just stress, lack of sleep. "Maybe you're projecting your fears onto the monitor," she told me. That was the thing. It wasn't just the monitor anymore. That afternoon, I found something scratched into the paint on the nursery wall, near the baseboard, barely visible unless the sun hit it right. Just one word. His. I didn't show Emily. Instead, I painted over it. That night, I turned the monitor off. But the moment the clock hit 2:55 a.m., my phone buzzed. A notification. Motion detected. Nursery camera. I opened the app. There was no feed. Just a black screen. But I could hear audio. Breathing. Then footsteps, soft on the carpet. Then humming. A woman's voice, low and broken. A lullaby. Not one I recognized. But Sophie reacted to it. From our room, I heard her coo, then giggle. I ran. The nursery was dark when I opened the door. The camera on the shelf blinked red. Sophie was standing in her crib, something she hadn't learned to do yet. And she was staring at the wall, the same spot where I'd painted over the word. She pointed. "Mama." Emily was still asleep downstairs. I carried Sophie out of the room and didn't go back. We slept in the guest room for the next 3 nights. The monitor was left off. My phone stayed face down. Emily and I said nothing. Not about the whispering, not about the flickering video, not even when Sophie began waking up with small scratches on her arms and legs. On the 4th night, I heard something new. Not from the hallway. From inside the room. I woke to the sound of crying. But not Sophie. It was a man, sobbing. Sharp, broken weeping, coming from the closet. I didn't move. I just stared at the door, which had been closed when we went to bed. Now it was open an inch. Just enough to see darkness. Emily stirred beside me. "Do you hear that?" "Yes," I whispered. We didn't move. The crying faded. Then came a sound I can only describe as bones cracking, one by one. Sharp pops. Then silence. When I finally got up and opened the closet, it was empty. The air smelled like dust and something metallic. There were no footprints. No sign of anything ever being inside. I didn't sleep again. The next day, we went to the library. I asked about the house, its previous owners, any history. The librarian was a small woman in her 60s with short gray hair and a voice like brittle paper. She pulled up the address and tapped the screen. "Oh," she said. "What?" She hesitated. "This house was on the market for a long time." "How long?" 8 years. That didn't make sense. The realtor said it had been recently listed. "Why so long?" She looked at me. "You should talk to the police." The police didn't have much to say, but they confirmed one thing: 2 previous owners. The first, a family with a baby. The father disappeared without a trace in 1997. The second, a single mother, who left town after reporting someone whispering through the vents. No one had lived in it since. Until us. I told Emily that night. She listened, face pale. Her hands trembled. Then she told me something I hadn't known. "I had a dream last night," she whispered. "I was in the nursery, and someone handed me Sophie. But it wasn't Sophie." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "She looked like her. Sounded like her. But it wasn't our daughter. I knew it. In the dream, I gave her back. And the thing that took her," she trailed off. "What did it look like?" She shook her head. "I don't want to remember." That night, we tried something different. We left a voice recorder in the nursery. No monitors. No cameras. Just one old-fashioned recorder on the shelf, red light blinking. We hit record at 9 p.m. and let it run all night. The next morning, I played it back. The first few hours were normal. Soft creaks, wind, Sophie stirring. Around 2:50 a.m., the white noise shifted. The silence thickened. And then a voice. Right next to the mic, he took her name. Then, nothing. I didn't let Emily hear the recording at first. She was already on edge, and I wanted to believe I could fix this on my own. That I could find a rational explanation, or at least contain it. But those 4 words, "he took her name," echoed through me like a sickness. Who was he? What did it mean to take a name? I started searching online for anything: old legends, folklore, sleep paralysis reports. What I found sent me down a path I wasn't prepared for. There was a phrase that kept showing up: the hollow listener. A figure from obscure Appalachian folklore. It was always associated with small children, static, and names. One account described it as a mouth with no eyes. A presence that spoke through broken lines, phones, monitors, radios. It didn't take bodies. It took identities, voices, names. And sometimes, if you didn't stop it, the child it whispered to became someone else. Or something else. I slammed the laptop shut and stared across the room, where Sophie was sitting in her bouncer, staring at nothing. Not babbling. Not smiling. Just watching the corner. That night, Emily brought out the baby book. It was a leather-bound thing she'd kept with care. First tooth, hospital bracelet, ultrasound photos. She was flipping through it when she stopped. "Where's the page with her name?" she asked. "What?" She turned it toward me. "The name page. Remember? I wrote Sophie Grace Halpern in gold ink. I practiced it 5 times. The page was blank. I thought maybe the ink had faded. But no, it looked untouched, like it had never been written on. I checked the hospital bracelet we kept in the pouch. It didn't say Sophie. It said, Infant Girl Halpern. No first name. Emily looked like she was going to be sick. The next day, I took Sophie to the pediatrician. Not for a checkup. For answers. I asked to see her file. The receptionist frowned, then tapped her keyboard. "Looks like we have a delay with the system. Her records showing incomplete." "What do you mean?" "I mean, there's no birth certificate attached." That wasn't possible. We signed everything. We saw the certificate. I had a copy somewhere, didn't I? I checked when I got home. The envelope that should have held it was empty. Emily tore through every drawer in the house. The file cabinet. The fireproof lockbox. Nothing. "I remember holding it," she said. "I remember signing it." So did I? But now it was gone. That night, the baby monitor came back. Not the new one. The old one. The one we'd tossed, buried, smashed with a hammer. It was back on the shelf, clean, white, humming softly. Neither of us had put it there. Sophie was asleep. Or so we thought. The monitor crackled to life at exactly 2:57 a.m. We stood together in the dark, staring at the green LED as it pulsed. Then, a voice came through. It was Emily's voice. She's not ours anymore. I turned to her, the real Emily, who stood frozen beside me. She hadn't said a word. Then came a second voice, and this one I recognized, though it made my blood go cold. It was my own. Let her go. Emily began to cry. The baby monitor hissed, and then shut off. We didn't sleep. At sunrise, Emily made a decision. We're leaving, she said. Today. Right now. I don't care if we have to live in the car. I agreed. I wanted to run. I wanted to burn the house to the ground. But first, we needed to do one thing. We needed to say her name. Out loud. If the folklore was true, if the hollow listener took names to erase identity, then maybe, just maybe, saying it would anchor her. Bring her back. Seal whatever crack had opened. Emily held Sophie in her arms, and we stood in the center of the nursery. I took her hand, and we said it together. Sophie Grace Halpern. The walls shook. Not like a normal tremor. Not like a passing truck or distant thunder. The air itself seemed to shudder, and the crib rattled violently against the floor. Sophie screamed. The window cracked from corner to corner. And then, something stepped through the closet door. It wasn't a man. It was a shape, long-limbed, featureless, like stretched wax. A smooth head with no eyes. No face. But where the mouth should have been, there was only a long, vertical slit. It didn't walk. It drifted. Straight toward Sophie. I stepped in front of it. It stopped, tilted its head, then opened its mouth. A voice poured out. Not a scream, not a growl. A chorus. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, whispering all at once. Names. So many names. Some I recognized. Children from our neighborhood. Names from missing posters. One was mine. The voice grew louder until I felt like it was inside my skull. Emily clutched Sophie tight. Say it again. I shouted it this time. Sophie Grace Halpern. The thing reeled back. And for the first time, I saw fear in something that had no eyes. It screamed, not in rage, but in hunger denied. And then it was gone. The closet door slammed shut. That was 3 nights ago. We left that morning. Rented a motel 6 towns over. Haven't been back. But last night, something happened. We were asleep in the motel room. Sophie was finally resting, a peaceful expression on her face. At 2:58 a.m., the smoke detector chirped once. Then again. I got up to check it, annoyed, but as I reached for it, I heard a whisper from the corner of the room. No device. No monitor. Just a whisper. She still has no name. We didn't go back to the house. We couldn't. Whatever was in there, it had followed us anyway. So we stayed on the move. 3 motels in 5 days. A short-term rental after that. We stopped using monitors entirely. We kept Sophie with us at all times. Slept in shifts. Kept the lights on. But it didn't stop. The whispers came no matter where we were. They no longer needed a speaker or a device. I heard them in vents, in wall creaks, in the spaces between seconds when I blinked. And Emily started to forget. First it was little things. The brand of Sophie's formula. The lullaby she used to hum. Then, more personal things. What day Sophie was born. Her middle name. Her first word. I tested her one night. Held up the baby and asked, "Who is this?" She stared at Sophie like a stranger. Her lips parted. She looks familiar. That's when I knew the hollow listener wasn't done. It hadn't just come for our baby. It was trying to erase us too. I called my sister. Told her everything. She didn't believe me, at first. But I must have sounded broken enough to worry her, because she offered us something we hadn't had in days. Shelter. A normal house. A locked door. We drove through the night. She lived in a small town in northern Ohio, the kind of place where the grocery store still had a bell on the door and every neighbor waved as you passed. For the first 24 hours, nothing happened. No static. No whispering. Sophie giggled for the first time in a week. We let our guard down. That was our mistake. On the second night, my sister offered to take Sophie into her guest room so Emily and I could rest. It felt wrong, but Emily said yes. We fell asleep at 10:30. Deep, dreamless. Until 2:57 a.m. I woke to a sound. Not the monitor. Not a whisper. A sharp, metallic tapping, rhythmic, deliberate, coming from the vent above our bed. Then it spoke. She remembers now. I ran to the guest room. Sophie was gone. My sister was lying on the floor, eyes wide open, pupils dilated. I thought she was dead. Then she blinked. She said her name. She whispered. The baby. But it wasn't Sophie. What did she say? She stared at the ceiling. She said her name was Mira. I carried her outside, half limp in my arms. Emily followed. We didn't grab our things. We drove to a church, sat in the parking lot until sunrise. Neither of us spoke. When the sun rose, Sophie smiled. And for a moment, I believed everything might be okay. Then she looked me in the eyes and said, "That's not your name." I called the woman who sold us the monitor. It had been a second-hand sale, a garage listing on Craigslist. I tracked the email, found a number. She answered on the third ring. I didn't even introduce myself. "Where did it come from?" I asked. She was silent. "Please. The monitor. The white one. Where did you get it?" She whispered. "We thought it stopped. We thought burying it would work." Burying it. She started crying. "My son. He started talking to someone through it. We heard voices at night. He changed. He started answering to a name that wasn't his. One night, we heard him teaching someone how to talk. And the next morning, he wouldn't speak at all. What happened to him? We buried the monitor. Deep. In the woods. We never found him again." She hung up. Emily and I made a decision that night. If the monitor had been the doorway, if it had somehow invited this thing into our lives, then maybe we could close it. Not by running, but by finishing it. We drove back to the house. The sun was setting as we pulled into the driveway. It looked the same. Too clean. Too still. We walked in through the front door. Sophie on my chest, sleeping. The monitor was waiting. On the nightstand. Green light blinking. I picked it up. No cord. No battery. Still warm. Emily said nothing. She just walked into the nursery and placed a chair in the center of the room. She sat down and held Sophie in her lap. "We end it here," she said. I nodded and turned the monitor on. It didn't hiss this time. It didn't click or whisper. It breathed. Long, slow breaths, like something massive, sleeping just beneath the fabric of the world. Each breath rattled the walls. The light bulb overhead flickered. Then came the voice. Low. Ancient. Starved. "Give her a name." Emily closed her eyes. "No," she whispered. "Give her a name. Any name." I understood now. It wasn't trying to steal names. It needed to be given one. It needed a name to exist. And once you gave it one, even as a joke, even by accident, it had you. That's why Sophie had started fading. That's why the birth certificate vanished. It was being replaced by Mira. Or something else. The voice grew louder. "Give her a name. Or I'll name her myself." Emily stood up. She already has one. We held Sophie together and shouted her name into the darkness. Sophie Grace Halpern. The room shook. The crib split down the middle. The monitor cracked in half in my hand, sparks flying. The walls groaned like they were alive. And then, silence. Not quiet. Total silence. Like we were underwater. Or inside a vacuum. Then, a whisper. Barely audible. "Too late." That was last night. We're still in the house. Nothing has happened since. The air feels thinner. Like something's holding its breath. But this morning, we found something under Sophie's pillow. A slip of paper. With 5 words, written in perfect gold ink. Her name is not Sophie. We didn't leave. We should have. But something kept us in that house. Some pull, like gravity but darker. Deeper. Emily said it best. If we run now, it'll follow. And next time, we won't even remember we had a daughter. We needed to know. Was Sophie still ours? Was the thing gone? The note with gold ink. Her name is not Sophie. Hadn't been there before. Someone had placed it under her pillow during the night. Or something. I called every name I could think of. Paranormal investigators, folklore forums, an old priest in the next county over. Most didn't answer. The ones that did hung up. Except for one. A woman named Maeve. She said she used to unname things. Her voice crackled through my speaker like she'd called from underground. "You've made contact," she said. "You know what it wants." "Her name," I said. "No," she replied. "Yours. The child is the window. But the doorway? That's always the parents. Especially the ones who name." I didn't understand. "You created her name," Maeve said. "You gave it with love. That's power. That's what it feeds on." I asked what we could do. Her answer chilled me. "You have to unname her." "What does that mean?" "You have to let her go." I ended the call. I didn't tell Emily. That night, we made a decision. Not the one Maeve suggested. We wouldn't give Sophie up. We would seal the house. We boarded the nursery door, salted every windowsill, buried the broken monitor in the crawl space, and sealed it in concrete. Every whisper, every draft, every hum of static. We fought it all with noise machines, radios, old prayers whispered through trembling teeth. And it worked. For 3 nights. Sophie laughed again. Emily started sleeping more than 2 hours. I even went outside, mowed the lawn. Things felt normal. Felt earned. Until the 4th night. 2:58 a.m. The air changed. Heavy. Charged. Like lightning was about to strike inside the house. I opened my eyes to find the hallway light flickering. Emily was already awake. Sitting upright. Pale. "Sophie's not breathing," she whispered. I jumped from the bed. Ran into the room. Her little body was limp in the crib, eyes closed, lips blue. We screamed. Shouted her name. Over and over. "Sophie Grace Halpern. Sophie Grace Halpern." And then, a gasp. Her body jerked. Air returned. Her chest rose. Tears spilled down her cheeks. And then she whispered something. I leaned in. "What, baby?" She whispered again. Not in her voice. "You said the name too many times." I stumbled back. My legs hit the crib. Emily pulled Sophie close and began sobbing. The crib began to shake on its own. We ran. Out of the house. Down the driveway. Into the car. And we didn't stop. We drove for 7 hours. No destination. Just away. We're in a motel now. Somewhere near the state line. I can't sleep. Emily's in the bath. Sophie is quiet. But I don't know if it's really her. Every time I look at her, I try to remember something small. The birthmark on her ankle. The shape of her ears. And every time, there's something off. Slightly wrong. Like a drawing that was traced too many times. The line isn't sharp anymore. And today, I saw something I can't explain. I opened my wallet to grab my ID. There was a slip of paper I hadn't put there. 5 words. "You gave it your name." I went outside, sat on the hood of the car, and stared at the horizon. And then I heard it. Faint. From inside the car. Through the window. A click. Like a speaker coming to life. Then static. Then my voice. Not recorded, but live. Real time. "She's not yours. You're hers." Emily's gone now. I don't know when it happened. She was in the shower. Then she wasn't. The water's still running. Sophie's asleep. But it's not Sophie. Not really. She woke up and looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Then said, "Daddy, is that still your name?" I tried to run. With the baby. Without her. I don't remember. I ended up back here. Back in the house. I don't know how. Maybe I never left. Maybe this has always been where I am. The nursery door is open now. There's a new monitor inside. Clean. White. Plugged in. The green light blinks. I hear the breathing again. It's close. And I swear, I hear her too. Not Sophie. The one before. The one we never named. The one we forgot. The one still listening. If you find this message, if you're reading these words, don't say her name. Don't speak to the monitor. Don't listen to the whisper. Because once it knows your name, it never forgets.